I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Clerk Cody, roll call, please.
Supervisor Gunning.
Here.
Treasurer Rice.
Here.
Trustee Lannon.
Here.
Trustee Milky. You say here.
Trustee Milky. Yo.
I said here.
Oh,
I said here.
Trustee Worley.
Here.
Trustee Hauk.
Here.
Clerk Cody here.
all right. We move from roll call to approval of agenda. We need a motion.
A motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion, support, discussion. Seeing none, we take that to vote. Clerk Cody?
Treasurer Rice.
Yes.
Trustee Hauk.
Yes.
Trustee Lannon.
Yes.
Trustee Worley.
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning.
Yes?
Trustee Milky.
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All right, we move from there to public comment. This will be 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda only. This is not a time for question and answers. It'll be strictly just for comments. Do we have anyone that wishes to, let me get, there we go, get to my blue hand. Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to provide public comment? Seeing no blue hands, we move on from public comment over to reports and board comments. For boards and commission, yeah, reports and comments. First item A, current list of boards and commissions. If anybody would like to provide any discussion on that at all?
I believe we received a letter from Denise Webster saying that her last day will be, I believe she's closing on the 31st or 30th. I don't have it right in front of me.
She indicated that her last meeting will be August 18th.
After that, she'll no longer be on the sidewalk or help with the planning commission.
And so on the sidewalk committee,
Oh,
I think her expiration date was August anyway, so we would be looking for a replacement for her spot on the as of the 15th. So any point in time. So we need to round up some candidates for the sidewalk and pathways committee.
Well, hers is actually from the planning commission representative, so the planning commission would actually nominate that person, if I recall.
Correct.
On their agenda.
Okay. I'll make a note.
Okay, so that's on their agenda.
I saw it earlier today. I looked at their agenda for next week and it's on their agenda.
Okay, all right. All right, so I don't see any other pending. We've got border review in December, multiple openings. And Park Advisory, we got an opening in December. All right, so Moving on from there, item B, board member reports. I'll just start from right to left here on my screen. So the first person up would be Treasurer Rice.
The only report I have is just taxes coming up. They're due September 14th. So be sure to get your taxes paid. We can do partial payments up until then. You can pay online. Just go to our website, uniontownshipmi.com. Follow the bill pay link, and you can search from your name, address, or parcel number, and you just click on tax information, and you can get everything right there and pay your bill right there. So we also, can have you drop it off in the drop box. And that you can, if you're wearing a mask and go through screening, you can come in, but you will have to wear a mask and you will have to go through the screening to do so. And then you can mail it in as well. So lots of options. That's all I have.
All right. Trustee Lamon,
No reports at this time.
Trustee Milky,
No reports at this time, thanks.
Trustee Howell.
Yes, I went to a road commission meeting on the 23rd of July. They were talking about all the road improvements that were talking earlier about the windmills in the area. I don't know if anybody's been around Nottawa Township or Isabella Township, but I travel those roads a lot. I mean, some of them are right across the road from my house. It's amazing how much better a lot of our roads look in the county because of the money that they put towards roads. They were talking about the gravel road project that should be done. Lisa, your road got done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. And then they were supposed to be brining our township last week and this week, and I could see that a few of the roads were done as I've been traveling this past week. One of the big things that they talked about was the Cornerstone subdivision. I don't know if Mark or Kim know anything about this, but there's been some issues with drainage there. And there was a house that they had to send some guys over to because the lady called and complained to the road commission that water was bubbling up out in front of her house. Well, there's no storm sewer in there. In that whole subdivision, there's no storm sewer. There's a lot of concrete, there's a lot of asphalt. Well, when it rains, there's nowhere for that water to go. And I've heard complaints before in that neighborhood. And the developer should have did something when they built it, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. They said that there might be an assessment coming if there's more complaints. So they might have to go through and put some drainage in there. So that's all I have.
Hey, Bill, I haven't had a chance to drive down south on Lincoln yet. I know they put some preparatory material on about 2-3 weeks ago.
It's not done yet.
Not done yet. Okay.
No,
Did they give you an idea?
no, they never said.
No. Okay.
It'll be sometime here this summer.
I knew it was getting close. I know that, but
Well, I know they finished Pickard. And that was one of the roads they had done that to too, because they did Pickard for like a 2 or 3 mile stretch from Meridian to like Vandecar Road, and that's all finished now. So I'm not sure if that wedging, if that needs to pack down and then they come through and repave. I'm sure Kim and Mark, maybe they know if there's been a date that they've given to pave it now or not.
To pave what?
To pave Lincoln Road from Broomfield to Deerfield.
No, I don't have a date for that.
I think it's pretty quick here, Bill. I believe Tony Casilla called me up about maybe a week and a half ago or something like that and told me that they were getting ready to, because a lot of people were complaining about the condition of the road and that material that was down.
Yeah,
So, all right, so we'll look forward to that. That'll be nice. That'll be probably the worst road in the area taken care of, so that'd be nice.
yeah, it is bad.
All right, let's see. Trustee Worley, any reports from you at all?
I have nothing for tonight.
Okay. And Clerk Cody.
Nothing at this time.
All right, so we move from item 8 to item 9. Item 9 would be consent agenda. You need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll support it.
Motion is support, discussion.
Who gets this support? Hauker or me?
What's that?
Who said support first? You?
Bill did.
Okay.
Bill, did you check the payables?
Yeah, I looked over everything. Everything looked good. I had
Okay.
a couple questions, but I went in and talked to Sherry about them, and they're all legit.
Okay, so the payables are all taken care of and checked.
Yep.
All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Clerk Cody, take it to roll call.
Clerk Cody, yes. Supervisor Gunning?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Milky?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Trustee Hauk?
Yes.
Trustee Lannon?
Yeah.
All yes?
Seems like our internet's a little off tonight. I don't know if it's me or you guys or everybody. All right, so moving on from item 9 to item 10, this is going to be new business first item, item A. This is a discussion action item from the utility department to award the contract for the Charter Township a Union Cross Connection Control Program and Lead and Copper Inventory Program to Hydro Corp of Troy, Michigan for a 3-year program in the amount of $129,600 and direct the township manager to execute the contracts.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. You'll find paperwork on this item starting on page 27 of your agenda packet. As I'm sure most of you know, the state of Michigan has several rules as they relate to water and sewer, and one of them is a cross connection rule or program that's required of water suppliers to establish a cross connection program. The township's been doing that on the commercial side for a number of years. At the same time, the state has redone in a major way their lead and copper rules. They were adopted by the state back in 2018. And these rules are extensive. They're going to probably require up to 400 annual inspections by us. So the Public Services Department began analyzing and evaluating how best to continue with the cross connection program with commercial property, expand that to include residential properties, also looking at how we were going to adhere to the lead and copper rule changes. So in that evaluation, it was determined that the best way to provide that oversight was to seek a professional firm to provide those inspections, do that paperwork, and help make sure that we remain in compliance. We sent out an RFP for this activity. In addition to the cross connection activity, lead and copper rules, we also asked in the RFP since whoever is doing this would be inside these residences during these inspections, to also provide the township with information on where sump pumps in people's houses might be connected to the sanitary sewer lines. We received one response back from HydroCorp. It's a Michigan-based company. They do this kind of work throughout the Midwest and for states along the East Coast. The cost of the program over the entire 3 years is $129,600, $43,200 per year. We do have with us tonight Mr. Paul Patterson from HydroCorp. If you had any questions of him and his company. And then I'd also like to ask Ms. Kim Smith to speak to the recommendation in a bit more detail as well. Kim?
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Mark did a really good job of introducing the program. I'll just give you a little bit more background. The township has had a cross-connection program since 1995. We do have a cross-connection ordinance that is a bit out of date. And we have primarily focused on our commercial customers. Our commercial customers pose the highest risk for cross-piping that could cause some contamination within the water system. So the main focus of our program has been the commercial customers over the last several years that we've done the program. We haven't totally ignored the residential customers. Several years ago, the township went through an exercise in identifying residential customers who have irrigation systems. In a residential home, an irrigation system poses the largest threat to the water system through a cross connection. So we did begin requiring that our residential customers test those devices yearly, provide us a report, and we report that to the state of Michigan as required. As we were looking at expanding our cross-connection program and determining how we're going to meet the requirements of the new lead and copper rules, we evaluated how we could deliver those services in the best possible way with the resources, both operational resources as far as personnel and IT resources, training, everything that we would need in order to provide that program. And we determined that for a system our size, it would be prudent for us to look at contracting these services out to a company who specializes in this type of program. They can provide the trained personnel, they can provide the inspection services that we'll need for both cross connections and lead and copper. So that we wanted to try to tie these two together. An additional 400 inspections a year for us would be quite tasking to, we currently have 2 water operators who work primarily in water, and for them to take on the additional 400 inspections as well as the additional residential cross connections inspections would be taxing when they could better be spending their time running the water treatment plants, working in the distribution systems, doing other inspections and sampling that are required with the water system. So we did create an RFP, and we did solicit bids for the program. In the solicitation of the bids, we sent it out to some companies that we were familiar with. There are not a lot of companies that provide these type of services in Michigan, but we did send it out. HydroCorp is probably the largest, or we talked to several municipalities that HydroCorp works for, and they were all very pleased with the services that they could provide. And I also invited a few other Michigan-based and spoke to a few other companies that were based in nearby states, one in Illinois, one in Wisconsin, who declined to bid because they were not providing services in our area. So based on the RFPs, we did ask for many, we did ask for many services. We asked for the cross connection program. We also asked them to do the lead and copper inventory for the residential homes. The township has completed the commercial ones through our cross connection program. So HydroCorp would just be providing that for the residential, because we already have that information for all of our commercial customers, as well as if they're going to be in the home. As you know, in the past few years, we've had some heavy rainstorms that have caused some of our pump stations to take in quite a bit of groundwater, and we've asked them to also identify if there are sump pumps connected to the system, so we could have that information and start trying to address some of those issues that we find on the sewer side. So based on that, we are recommending tonight that HydroCorp be awarded the contract for the 3 years for the cross connection program, as well as to collect the lead and copper information and to the sump pump information. And if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those. And if I can't answer them, if you have questions about HydroCorp, Paul Patterson is here tonight to answer those.
Thank you. Trustee Milky.
Yes, thank you. Kim, I'll let you decide who's best to answer this, but so I'll direct it at you, and you can hand off if you need to. With regards to, I'm assuming the lead and copper inventory, that's probably gonna be more invasive, because I'm assuming based on the description that the inspections largely are, will be external to a home that have, irrigation systems. Is that reasonable?
Well, they do have to go into each home and do an inspection of the home and what other cross connections could exist. There are other cross connections in the home that could exist. One, for example, is if you have a sump pump that is water driven, that could be a potential cross connection. So there are other ones. So they will have to enter the homes.
Okay, and with that, then, I've talked to a lot of residents that since lockdown essentially are a little hesitant to have. Sorry, a little hesitant to. I heard some noise. Excuse me. They're hesitant to have service people or inspectors come to their house without properly knowing that COVID precautions are taken. Were those discussions discussed with HydroCorp?
Paul, do you want to answer that question? Because I know that we did discuss it, but you can probably go over that. What's your response to COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. In the packet, there should be in the back of the information we provided our company stance on COVID as of now. It's about 2 pages. So we are addressing that with all of our field personnel. As far as we are supplying proper PPE, so they'll have face masks, gloves. We actually require them to wear booties, even though that's not part of COVID, but keep the house clean kind of thing. Daily temperature checks. So all of our inspectors have a daily checklist they have to go through with their supervisor. And being that they're all remote, those are the steps we can take. We can't physically take their temperatures. We have to take their word for it, but we are requiring them to report in daily as to, their activity. They have to fill out the checklist, and we do make sure that they're wearing all their proper PPE. Now, I will say, since COVID, roughly March, we shut down operations when everybody shut down. And we didn't start entering homes again for any of our programs until July. Essentially, when we set the appointments with the homeowners, we'll send letters out. We'll ask them to schedule an appointment with us. Anybody who's hesitant to have us in their home at this time, we're just, thanks, we'll get back to you, when this is gone, hopefully at some point. We're not forcing ourselves into any situations where anybody's uncomfortable. Even if they don't call us and let us know, if they tell our inspectors, we just tell them, just leave, and we'll reschedule it later down the road when hopefully, we get beyond all of this.
So I think you kind of answered what was going to be my next question, or at least began to get at it. So this letter that goes out, I mean, that's going to give the opportunity for the homeowner to express any concerns they have. And I think a lot of those concerns would be alleviated by what you just relayed, that your company is being responsible. They're going to be wearing the appropriate PPE to protect not just themselves, but the homeowners. And so that's really what I wanted to hear. So I'm assuming that's part of the communication process, at least during this phase of
Yes.
where we're at with COVID. That's pretty accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And I only have one other comment, then I'll be done, Supervisor Gunning. And that is, unless I missed it in my printout, I didn't see the contract itself. And Mark, I guess I'm just used to that being part of our packet. So would you just take note of that for future?
I will, and you're right, it normally is in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Just inadvertently not included.
I figured as much, and I just thought I would note that so that for future reference. Thank you.
Trustee Lannon.
Thank you, Supervisor Gunning. Just to help me understand, of course, we are all certainly interested in having our best water we could provide to the citizens, which it seems that we do provide a high quality product. But interested, Kim, on the lead and copper sources that possibly could contaminate our water. What would those source points be, both commercial and residential?
For lead and copper?
Yes, please.
Well, for lead and copper, what we're required to do is do an inventory of the service leads and what the material of that is. So what needs to happen is when you do an inspection on the home, you'll look at where the water comes into the home and determine if what the material is that service lead is. We have to go 18 inches into the home and determine what that is. So for instance, in your basement, wherever the water comes in, they would look at your service lead and determine if that's plastic, lead, copper, what that is actually made from. And then that's where we would determine if there would have to be a replacement done at that home of that service lead.
Okay, so that'd be predetermined in inspections on new construction, but to me that'd sound like it'd be a one-time thing for existing construction. Is
Correct.
that accurate?
Right. Once we have the initial inventory of the residential, then that part of the program will be done. And then we would have to work on the replacement of those lines, which is, there's quite a few different things that have to happen in the program. What HydroCorp is going to help us with is that the inventory. We've done a pre-inventory for information that we have, but you are still required to confirm all of that.
Okay, so say you notice a material that is not appropriate according to the program. Is that followed up by a water test and a determination made if there is or is not a problem with the testing of that residential water? Or is it a must change out situation?
It's a must change out situation. If we find a lead service lead, we are required to replace that service lead.
Okay, and these are state requirements?
These are state requirements under the lead and copper rules, yes.
Okay. Help me understand the cross connection program a little bit better on both the commercial and residential. Devices that are being tested and what else is involved with that cross definition.
I'm sorry, Tim, I only heard part of that. So you want to know what devices are being tested?
Yeah, for both commercial and residential, what is inspected? What devices for the cross connection portion? Am I breaking up?
There's some background noise. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble. I can hear most of what you're saying. So there's different testable devices that for backflow. RPZs is one of the most common ones. And those are tested, those are required to be tested by a state certified backflow tester based on the threat that it causes. So those would exist on things like irrigation systems, boiler systems. There's a whole list in the cross connection rules manual that lists where those are required under state plumbing code and the cross connection rules.
Okay. Does a swimming pool impact the problems that could be brought forth with water contamination?
Well, normally a swimming pool is not connected to the water system. So,
Okay.
I mean, if somebody's filling a pool and they're using their hose, that could be a possible cross connection unless they have the proper device at their hose bib, which is a hose bib vacuum breaker, to eliminate that water coming back in and causing a cross connection.
Okay.
That's a very low hazard though, Tim.
Yes. How about the significant hazard, say for an irrigation backflow? Is that low, medium?
No, irrigation is considered a high risk hazard.
Okay. In the information that Hydro Corp provided, they talked about 3 to 5 year inspection of irrigation backflow preventers. Are we going to go with what they talk about in their literature? More stringent, less stringent? And
I would expect that we would do that. Yes, there are some changes to, or the state has a cross connection rules manual, and there has been some leniency to where you could test those every 3 to 5 years. So that we will, as part of this program, be changing our ordinance, and then those recommendations would be part of that ordinance.
Okay.
On how often certain things have to be tested.
How often would a resident expect on this program that a representative from Hydro Corp would be in their home?
Is it once every 5 years, Paul?
The initial go through, and that is, we base that more on the lead and copper rule. So for the first round, the homeowners really for the first 5 years should only see us once, maybe twice. And the only reason they would see us twice is if we found something that they needed to address that was a hazard, so they needed to hire a contractor or install a backflow preventer on any part of their plumbing system, then we would go back and re-inspect that home to make sure that once they did the work, it is actually in compliance. After that point, once they're in compliance, like I said, the first round, we're looking at visiting everybody over a 5 year period. Once that initial round is completed, then what the state allows is up to 10 years. So, and that'll be a conversation that we would have. Kim has mentioned your ordinance. So one of the first things we would do is take a look at your existing ordinance, and you also are required by Eagle to have a cross-connection control plan. So all of these details, inspection frequencies, testing frequencies for backflow preventers, all of that's going to be part of that plan and part of your ordinance. So really there's some leeway. I would recommend after that first round, most communities are spreading the residential out to 10 years.
Okay. Would fire hydrants be a source of contamination to the water main? Probably more specifically self-draining ones, but maybe not.
You want to answer there? You want me to, Paul?
I can. Fire hydrants are a different animal. We'll start with that. Yes, they potentially could be. It's been recommended that anything with a weep hole, that the weep hole be plugged, and then you would have to physically go around and essentially pump out your fire hydrants every year to make sure they don't freeze. There are some communities that did that. That is not a hard, fast rule. So it's really community to community what you feel comfortable with. Our bigger concern with fire hydrants is contractors that connect to fire hydrants, water haulers, or all kinds of pesticide companies, fertilizer companies. Who, if you have a hydrant policy where you rent out or lease hydrant meters to contractors, that's really, in my opinion, a bigger concern than just the weep hole.
And then Tim, just so you know, for the township, we do pump ours out every year because our spec does not allow the weep hole, and we have plugged the weep holes in the hydrants that were pre that spec, so that we've tried to eliminate that potential hazard. And we do have, Paul talked a little bit about the haulers. We do require, if we allow somebody to hook to a hydrant, we have a meter and a backflow preventer that is tested, and we provide that as part of our bulk water program. So we do have the proper things in place in order to be able to do that program.
Okay. I was a little bit surprised that commercial would be 1/3 of the cost of this program, with residential being 2/3 of the cost of this program. Obviously, I don't know much other than the numbers of homes are probably more than the number of businesses, but
yeah, exactly. That's a volume thing. If you look at it, we're doing 95 commercial inspections a year, 400 residential. If you actually broke down the math, the residential inspections per unit are going to come out considerably cheaper or less money than the commercial per unit. It's just that there's more units.
okay. And to cover the 3-year cost, where will that revenue source come from for this contract? Is that charged to the consumer, Kim?
Yes, that would come out of the water fund, and it would be paid for with user fees.
Okay, and one last final question, if you indulge me. Have you, on how to select what groups of residents to start with?
I'm sorry, Tim, I only heard part of that.
Okay, I was just wondering, if it takes 5 years to get through the residential initial program, have you got a strategy of how you're going to attack what residents you work with first?
No, if the contract is awarded, then we would work with HydroCorp to determine how that would roll out.
Thank you.
Did Norm pass out?
No, he excused himself a minute, I think.
Okay, okay.
I saw him get up. So.
I just didn't see anything there, so I wasn't sure. He's at that age, you know. Let's see here. Any further questions? Really?
Hey, they were good questions.
Okay. Okay, you got one more? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Supervisor Goding. So just for my understanding, if I had a hose siphoning and backflowing due to a pressure change into my drinking water system, my potable water, how does that get into the water main? I can understand it contaminating my drinking water, but I am curious about how it would get back into the water main.
Depending on what the issue is, a garden hose, it's a siphon essentially would create that backflow. Could be caused by a water main break. If it goes on long enough, there's nothing in your home piping system to stop that. There's no check valve at the meter typically. Essentially, and again, we're probably talking about a water main break at that point. It depends on how long the break's going on and how long, that loss in pressure is affected. There's been cases in Michigan, it was years ago, and I believe it was downriver Detroit area. Some microscopic nematodes, I think they were called, were siphoned back through a lawn irrigation system, and they made their way into the city water system and through several homes in one neighborhood. So it does happen. It has to be an extreme case. However, that being said, we don't want it to get in your home either. And Kim can probably attest to this. If something came in from your garden hose and contaminated your home, probably one of the first calls is going to be to the water department, right? So we don't want that to happen either. We want to protect everybody and make sure that, we're protecting the homeowners, we're protecting their surrounding neighbors. We just want everybody to have good drinking water.
Thank you. And just help me with my math. What would be an average cost for a homeowner annually on this program?
That's a hard question to answer. It could be zero. It could be a couple $100, but the couple $100 would probably be a one-time fix. For testing of a backflow preventer, I really feel uncomfortable throwing out prices because every contractor sets their own price. I've seen as low as, $40, and I've seen as high as $150. What we normally would tell a homeowner if they called us or asked, call 3 or 4 contractors. We're going to provide a list of everybody in the area that's certified to do the testing. I always recommend to people call at least 3, ask their price. If they can't give you a price over the phone, call somebody else. because the test is what the test is. It's not, the size of the device doesn't matter. It takes the same amount of time. So really, we try to educate the homeowners, do your due diligence, because we don't like to hear, a contractor came out and charged them $300, because that's just ridiculous. Now that's for the test. If for some reason it fails test, then we're looking at an increased cost because of repairs or possible replacement. The biggest thing we see with the backflow preventers, typically on lawn irrigation systems, is they're left outside all year. They're outside against the side of the house, and if they are not winterized properly, they will get freeze damage and they will have to be replaced or repaired. And when you get into replacement repair, you're going to be looking at a little more money. But the average test shouldn't be any more than $100.
All right, one more question. Potentially, could a homeowner, if they do have a check valve at the main, is that required to be checked?
At the service inlet, at the meter, it depends. If it's a testable device, then it should be tested. But unless for some reason the township had required that, they should not have anything at the meter. If they do, most likely if they do, it's not a testable device. It's a check, single check valve that's not going to be testable.
So other possible places could possibly be like a heating system that uses a boiler system. That would be a location, right?
Yeah.
Or a sump pump might be another one.
Talk about a sump pump, so that could be another one.
Yeah, and inside most homes, what we'll find is, the heating system, like you said, a boiler, the water-assisted sump pumps, water softeners could be an issue, and then unprotected hose connections. It's really, but the four big ticket items at a home are going to be irrigation, boilers, sump pumps, and the water softener.
And this is needed, how it's laid out, to meet state requirements as a water provider. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing's added.
I'm sorry?
What was that?
Nothing above or more stringent is being added than what's offered in the code by the state.
Added to what?
Added to what is being proposed to be inspected and tested, and
as it relates to the cross connection?
Yes, and the frequency.
What we're trying to do is comply with state regs.
They have a program that complies with the state regulations.
Yeah, this contract also has this piece about checking while we're in the home, sump pumps hooked up to sewer systems.
Yep. Okay, one last question, Kim. You know if our neighboring municipal is at this level? Are they enforcing all of these inspections to meet the state code presently?
I can't answer that, Tim. I'm not familiar with where the city is with their cross connection program.
Okay,
I know that they have a cross connection program, but I can't answer the question if they're meeting all the state requirements.
Thanks a bunch for indulging me, you guys.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you, Tim. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Trying to figure out how many questions you're gonna have, Milky.
One.
One, okay, go.
Would you like more?
No.
Would you like more?
No.
This is for Kim, and I guess probably for Mark to a certain degree too, but I expect Kim, it's more informational. So the state imposes these regulations on our communities, which is perfectly understandable with what's happened in water safety in Flint. I'm assuming that was the catalyst for this. And maybe that's a bad assumption, but that's my assumption. But we're talking about $43,000 a year that's being added without, I'm assuming, any compensation through revenue sharing or any direct payments from the state, which means we have to pass this on as a direct cost to our consumers. And I just want to make sure that, so that this is going to be bundled into our cost study then as well now, right?
Yes, and actually, when we did our cost of service study, this was in our capital plan. I mean, this was part of our budget this year, and it was in our capital plan, so we were aware of the cost. I mean, it was factored into it.
Wonderful, thank you. Ben, just 10 more questions.
And just to add on to that response, whether or not this contract's approved, we still have to go through these exercises.
Right.
We're just going to be using staff to do it. So the money's going to get spent. Our analysis suggests, well, more than suggests, is that this is a cheaper way to go. We still have to do all the testing, the lead and the copper. We still have to meet the regs.
Right. Thank you.
Welcome. Clerk Cody.
I'm saying something that's kind of similar to what Mark just said. If we hired somebody to do it, because we don't have enough workers, it would cost way more for 3 years to hire somebody with insurance and everything else added on top of it. So I think this is definitely the cheaper way to go. And if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I can make a motion.
Please.
No blue hands. Quick.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the Charter Township of Union Cross Connection Control Program and Lead and Copper Inventory Program to HydroCorp of Troy, Michigan for a 3-year program in the amount of $129,600 and direct the township manager to execute the contracts.
Support.
Motion to support and discussion. Seeing none, we take this to vote. Clerk Cody?
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Melky.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All right. Motion carries. Item B.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Acceptance of certificate of validity and adoption of the McGurk subdivision paving special assessment district resolution number 1 for the establishment of a paving special assessment district.
So the residents of the McGurk subdivision, we've received a formal petition requesting a special assessment district be created for paving the roads within that subdivision. Staff has reviewed that petition. We have to review to ensure that the signatures are valid. And then we also have to review it to see if the number of valid signatures, the front footage that those signatures represent to the total front footage of the proposed district, if that's greater than 50%. And so we've done that. The assessor's office looked at the frontage situation, frontage feet. The township clerk reviewed the signatures against the voting records. In your packet, there is a certificate of validity that the supervisor signed. And so with this petition certified, the next step to move the process along is the approval of the resolution that's in your packet. The resolution resolves a couple things. It indicates or confirms that the board is in fact is in receipt of the certificate of validity, that the township board accepts that as being true and accurate. And the resolution also then directs the manager to oversee the preparation of plans that describe the improvement, the location of the improvement, obtain an estimate cost of the improvement, both on a fixed and periodic basis, that installment business that we've been talking about. And then the resolution also directs that once those estimates are obtained, they be given to the township clerk so they're available to the public. So if you approve this resolution tonight, the process will continue. We would be back in front of you. Our plan is to be back in front of you at your first meeting in September, at which point you would consider a resolution tentatively approving your intention to make the improvement, tentatively designating the special assessment district, and setting a time and date for the first public hearing. And so we're recommending that you approve the resolution tonight to allow the process of creating this district that will culminate with the paving work if you continue to, if you eventually approve the special assessment role, that you adopt this resolution tonight.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the certificate of validity and adoption of the McGurk subdivision paving special assessment district, resolution number 1, for the establishment of a paving special assessment district.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I've got a question off the front here, just trying to get a handle on this. So once the cost estimate is arrived at by the road commission, how is the assessment going to be divided? Is it by parcel, or are they using or reusing frontage as the vehicle for the cost to the residents individually?
It would be on a per parcel basis. The informal petition that was circulated that you've seen is on a per parcel basis, the thinking being whether you own 10 feet or 20 feet, you still use the whole road.
Yeah, it's all perceived benefit, right? Okay, that was my question. Any other questions? Seeing none, we take this to vote.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Lannon,
Yeah.
Yes.
all yes.
All yes. All right. So motion carries. The certificate of validity and adoption of McGurk subdivision paving special assessment district resolution number 1 has been approved. And we move to our next item on the agenda, which is going to be item number C, which is to conduct a second reading for and adopt the new housing licensing code ordinance, which regulates rental housing in the township.
So this is the second action to adopt this ordinance. It was before you at your last meeting. We've done a review of the housing license ordinance, and recommending that we update license requirements, certain standards. You approved or directed the staff to publish a summary of this ordinance in the paper last meeting, which we did on August 2nd. We also posted it on our website and out front on July 24th. So if you're interested in approving this ordinance tonight, you would be holding your second reading, voting to whether or not you want to adopt it or not. And then on certain procedural rules, it would become effective shortly thereafter.
I would like to move to conduct a second reading of the new housing licensing code and ordinance, which is before us, which regulates rental housing in the township.
Support.
Motion Milky, support Worley. Discussion.
I'll make one brief comment for those that might be watching in the public. This is the second time we've had it before this board. If there's not a lot of discussion, it's because we've already been through this. And if there is, then that's fine too. Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
You see me?
Yep. And that's not going to work if you're going to raise your pinkies there. You got to use the blue hand. All right. Now I'll go to you.
Okay. So the motion was to conduct a second reading. So you're doing the adoption and then next.
I hadn't intended to do both at once. I didn't want to be presumptuous. I wanted to make sure we had the second reading in the books, and
I thought that you should do it separately because it's an ordinance anyway, and I was going to say that before you made your motion. Or
okay. Yep. And that's how I intended it, was just as a second reading for now.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify.
The
We'll see how-
recommended action before you
Yes, I just
sign
did.
on page 56 of your packet is to conduct the second reading of the proposed housing license code ordinance and to adopt the ordinance. And that motion is an appropriate motion if you want to do this in one shot, one vote.
Comfortable with your motion?
Yeah, at this time. Yep.
Okay. All right. Trustee Howe?
Yeah, I just had, where it says responsibility of the owners on page 61, item K, it says all leaks shall be properly repaired. I think that should probably say properly repaired.
Thank
Good
you.
catch, Bill.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, take this to vote to approve the second reading of the housing licensing code ordinance, which regulates the rental housing in Union Township.
Right?
All set. Take
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Supervisor Gunning,
yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes,
Trustee Worley.
Yes.
All
All
yes.
right. Second reading was approved of the new housing
If I may,
licensing code ordinance.
I'd
which
like to make a
regulates
motion.
rental housing in the township. Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the new housing licensing code ordinance, which regulates rental housing in the township with the change noted by Trustee Hauk.
Support.
Motion Milky, support Worley. Discussion? Seeing none, we take this to vote. This would be to approve the new housing licensing code ordinance, which regulates rental housing in Union Township. Clerk Cody?
Trustee Milky,
Yes.
trustee Lannon,
Yes.
trustee Worley,
Yes.
trustee Hauk,
Yes.
treasurer Rice,
Yes.
supervisor Genning,
Yes.
clerk Cody, yes.
All right, item D. This is to introduce and conduct a first reading of the proposed new construction codes ordinance.
So this item begins on page 74 of your packet. Again, as part of the review of the township's ordinances, we looked at construction-related ordinance initiated by staff. And from that review, we have a proposed new construction code ordinance that's been developed and that's in front of you, the key elements of which are it reaffirms that the township is designated as the local enforcing agency under the relevant public act. It adopts by reference the current edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, which addresses blight and dangerous properties or buildings. And it consolidates several construction-related regulations and ordinances that are on our books into a single ordinance. So as part of this activity, you're also repealing existing ordinances 1986-2, which is titled Union Township Code Adoption Ordinance, number 19895, which deals with moving buildings, number 1992-3, which is titled Uniform Code for the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings, number 1998-14, Uniform Building Code, number 2013-4, it's an ordinance addressing floodplain management provisions of the State Construction Code Act, number 2014-06, which is the International Property Maintenance Code, and the outdated and unenforceable house trailer ordinance of June 6th, 1967. All of those issues that are being addressed by those various separate ordinances continue to be addressed in this new ordinance. And I'm going to let Rodney speak to this in a little greater detail at this time. So if you would, Rodney.
Well, thank you. I think that certainly was a good summary. The key was to bring our ordinance up to the current requirements related to the state construction code and how it's enforced, and simply to eliminate a number of outdated ordinances that are still in the township's books. So this is a consolidation of regulations. It does not remove anything that we are currently doing or regulating. It simply consolidates them into this new ordinance and brings it up to the current specifications that we're required to follow under the state construction code.
You have to answer any questions you may have.
I'll make a motion to introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed new construction codes ordinance.
Or
Motion Hauk, support Rice. Our first discussion person, Mr. Milky.
Be real brief. Mark, I believe when you're reading the ordinances that need to be repealed, you listed 2013-04, addressing floodplain management. The text that I have in front of me is 2013-05. I just want to make sure there's not a mistake in the text, or hopefully you just misspoke.
I'm reading off my notes, so I'll have to defer to Rodney.
It is 2013-05.
I'm reading from page 78.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the correct one, and just want to make sure there wasn't a mistake made.
No,
Thank you.
No, that is 2013-05 is the correct reference.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the table to approve the first reading for the proposed new construction codes ordinance.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Lannon,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Trustee Melky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All right, first reading is approved of the new construction codes ordinance. That brings us to our next item on the agenda, item E, board approval of the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the Fire Fund, East DDA Fund, West DDA Fund, Tribal 2% Grants Fund, Sewer Fund, and Water Fund.
You may recall that at your last meeting, you reviewed and considered and approved budget amendment number 1 to the general fund. At that time, I'd indicated there were several other funds that needed to be brought forward. Those funds are what's in front of you tonight. The fire fund total net revenue from all adjustments is an increase of $11,300 for the fire fund. On the expense side, there's a decrease of $30,000 as a result of the fire truck purchase coming in a bit under what we had budgeted. The net impact on the fire fund is to increase projected year-end fund balance by $41,000 compared to the original adopted budget. On the East DDA fund, total net revenue adjustments increase of $8,000. On the expense side, net expenditure increases is $14,800. The net impact on the East DDA fund is to reduce projected year-end fund balance compared to the existing original adopted budget by $6,800. The West DDA fund, no change in revenues with the budget amendment. On the expense side, there's an additional expenditures of $78,600 to make final payments on pump station work that was either not completed or not billed within the accounting timeframes of 2019. The net impact there is a reducing projected year-end fund balance by $78,600. I will note that the EDA considered these amendments at their July 21st meeting. They approved this budget amendment, and they also approved recommending to the Board of Trustees that you all approve it. So it has been vetted by the EDA. The 2% fund, it's an increase in the budget to reflect the spring 2020 grant receipts from their program of $54,010. On the expense side, it's to increase the budget by the amount of the respective projects that they awarded those grant funds for. There was the school zone upgrade around the Mary McGuire School on Isabella. the Chippewa River Trail Master Plan that they were funding, and design improvements for funding the cost of the design work for the improvements at Broadway and Isabella intersection. There's also an increase in the budget of $150,000. The CMU connector pathway has been completed, and we anticipate paying for that this year, receiving that invoice. That money was awarded by the tribe in, I want to say 2019, might have been 18, but it's sitting there in fund balance. The resulting net impact of this budget amendment on the 2% fund is to decrease projected year-end fund balance by $150,000. On the sewer fund, net revenue from the various adjustments is to increase revenues for $43,918. Expenses are increasing by $67,000. The net impact is to decrease the projected year-end fund balance by $23,494. And on the water fund, net revenue from all the adjustments is $4,000. On the expense side, those are increasing by $57,845 for a net impact, which is decreasing that fund balance by $61,845. What I went through was just the summarization. Your memo in your packet provides more detail. And then starting on page 85 of your packet, you have several pages of additional detail all the way down to the account level. Thank you.
All right, so we need to have a motion at this time.
I'll motion to approve the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the fire fund, East DDA fund, West DDA fund, tribal 2% grant fund, sewer fund, and water fund.
Support.
I didn't catch who said support.
Rice.
Rice, okay.
Right.
Discussion? So Mark, we have or haven't been invoiced for the CMU connector pathway.
We have not physically received the invoice. I've been in communication with CMU. I anticipate it, in the next couple of weeks anyways. Maybe
So we don't know what the full cost was then on that yet.
No.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on this item? Seeing none, we put this up to vote. We have a motion on the floor. This would be to approve the FY 2020 budget amendment number 1 for the fire fund, East DDA fund, West DDA fund, tribal 2% grant fund, sewer fund, and water fund. Clerk Cody.
Trustee Milkey,
Yes.
Trustee Lannan,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Supervisor Gunning,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Worley.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. And this would be item F on your agenda. And this would be the Township Board of Trustees is requested to authorize an appropriation of up to $6,600 for the purchase of Lot 61 in the Country Squire Estate Subdivision Number 2, which is 5243 Jonathan Lane, PID number 14-059-00-061-00, and payment of ancillary costs, and to authorize the township manager to notify the Isabella County Treasurer that township is exercising its option to purchase this lot for public purposes.
And so in July, we received a notice, as we often do, from the county treasurer, that the township had an option to purchase a piece of property, which is subject to and going through the tax foreclosure process. And before it goes out to general bid, this is kind of a right of first refusal, although we're not first, the state's actually first. If the state were to happen to want this property, they would get it. So we took a look at it, and we found it interesting. In your packet, there's an aerial map that shows where the lot in question is, how it connects a couple neighborhoods, and what I did was turn it over to Community and Economic Development Department for review and any recommendation as to whether or not we should consider purchasing it. The minimum bid is on the property for the back taxes is just under $6,000. There'd be some maintenance costs that we'd have to incur for the rest of this fiscal year. We're estimating about $700, and that the potential for the future development of this would be presented in your 2021 budget recommendation. And so this is kind of interesting. It's about, do you want to take control of a property to maybe do something in a neighborhood or multiple neighborhoods that might produce additional improvements, private and public, down the road. First, you have to control the property. You have to maintain it. Then you have to be prepared to spend some additional money to actually develop it. And so there's a whole thought process and considerations that goes into, what options from a public, because the property has to be used for a public purpose by law. And what could those be? What kind of impacts could it have on neighborhoods? And since that's not my area of expertise, but Rodney's, I'm going to turn it over to him to discuss those options in more detail.
Thank you. As Mark said, on page 101 of your packet, there's the aerial photo that kind of lays out the neighborhoods there. There are several different subdivisions. Interestingly, there is no connection between kind of the southern half of that space and the northern half in terms of road or any kind of pedestrian connection between the two. So somebody that lives on Jonathan Lane and wants to visit somebody on K Street has to drive all the way around out on Isabella and come back to do that. It happens that this lot is very well situated to provide that connection if we chose to invest in it and to pursue the work that would need to be done to do that. The dimensions of the lot almost perfectly line up with the 3rd Street right of way to the north. And you can see on that aerial photo that how that connects together. And on page 102 is a detail of it. The other interesting thing is that there is already an easement through this lot that there's a 30-foot wide, approximately 30-foot wide utility easement that runs through the the western part of this lot. And there is a township sewer line that runs through it, and you can see that on page 102. So there was already some connection here. The idea would be, in terms of if we were to purchase this for a public purpose, an important public purpose would be to connect these neighborhoods together, to at a minimum to create an opportunity for a pedestrian connection between the two neighborhoods. The secondary public purpose would be protect that easement. One of the challenges with this lot, it's 80 feet wide, as are many of the lots along Jonathan Drive in this area. But because of the sewer easement, there is no place, for example, to put a garage. These homes on Jonathan Drive and the surrounding streets, these are modular or manufactured homes that were installed on individual lots and on permanent foundations. This particular home at 5243 is what we call a double wide modular home. If you drive through the neighborhood, you'll see that many of the other lots have been improved, where they've added attached garages or detached garages to upgrade the property and to add additional benefits to the homeowners. This lot, because of the sewer easement, there's no place to do that in the norm, at least in the normal location for it on the driveway. And so it is a challenge, a lot that has challenges to do anything to improve the improvement as a residential lot. But it does have very interesting possibilities. First as I said, a pedestrian connection potentially, but also in the long term to consider extending 3rd Street south through that lot to connect it to Jonathan Drive, to create a physical a vehicle connection between the neighborhoods. If you look back at page 101, you can see that even if we did create at some point a street connection through there, it would not really create a highway through that neighborhood. The streets are designed in such a way that it would not be attractive for folks, for example, to cut through from Broadway to Isabella, but it would provide the ability for folks in this neighborhood to connect through to Isabella if they chose to. They would have an easier way to get up to the business district and out to the freeway without going out to Isabella Road. I'm sorry, Pickard Road. I keep saying Isabella. Get out to Pickard Road. Without having to go to Isabella and going around. So there are some interesting benefits. From the perspective of neighborhood development, this is a dilapidated home. It's been this way for several years. There's been a lot of ordinance enforcement activity in terms of tall grass mowing, that most of which is now on the books as a lien on the property. So cleaning this up would make a difference to the neighborhood around it. But it's also interesting what a small public improvement project can do to the area around. If this project is undertaken, whether it's in the form of just clearing the site and putting a sidewalk in, for example, or clearing the site and pursuing a road connection, that kind of an investment in a neighborhood can change the perspective of other homeowners in that neighborhood in terms of looking at, well, maybe what should we be doing with our property? There are a lot of good homes in this neighborhood, a lot of good residents, but this is an aging neighborhood, especially Jonathan Drive and Berkshire and the others, so there's an opportunity potentially to be a catalyst for other private improvements by doing the small public improvement. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to authorize an appropriation of up to $6,600 for the purchase of Lot 61 in the Country Square Estate Subdivision Number 2. 5243 Jonathan Lane, property identification number 14-059-00-061-00. And payment of ancillary costs, and to authorize the township manager to notify the Isabella County treasurer that the township is exercising its option to purchase this lot for public purpose.
Before, Mr. Landon, before you had began to make the motion, Mr. Houck, trustee, had his hands up before you. Bill, did you want to?
No, I'm gonna make a comment, but we had.
Okay.
Motion's okay.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna recognize trustee Houck.
All right. Well, we all think this is a good idea. Well, have we asked the neighborhood what they think? I did. I saw this and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go talk to some neighbors. So where our proposed road would go, I talked to the neighbors on all the sides of where the road would go. First of all the people that I talked to in Jonathan, back in Country Squire Estates, they kind of like it back there. They've got their own little cul-de-sac. They don't have through traffic coming in. They just have their own people back there. Okay? I'll start naming some names of people that I talked to, and if people have their map out on 102, I can tell you where they live. Randy and Sarah Duke, she said it's crazy, and she said this is a private area, and she said they would consider selling their house. She said that every car that would come through there would have to come by their house, and she's not for it. The people that would be on K Street, where the proposed street would come through on the north side, they said they would have no problem with it. Their main deal is they're sick of trucks coming through their neighborhood. And they said that being that their property is right next to the street, they wondered how the street would go through. And they said they don't want any encroachment. This is his words. He wrote this down. Do not encroach on my property. All right. I talked to Linda Alexander, who would be right across the street from the Tuppers that I just talked to. Her house, cars coming from the south to the north would stop. Lights would flash into her house. Her address is 5231 East K Street. She's against it. I talked to Mike Walters, who lives around the corner on Jonathan, 5272 Jonathan Lane. He said it really doesn't matter to him, but he said he would prefer that they keep things the way they are. He said that he probably wouldn't use it. He likes doing what he does. Then I talked to the one that probably impacts the most. The lady that lives right straight across the street from where every car from the north would be coming, heading south, 5240 Jonathan Lane, Loretta Gillis. Tim, you might remember her. She's Tim Gillis's mother. Anyways, she's like 82 years old. She said every car that comes up there, their headlights would flash right in front of my house. She said she's totally against it. No way does she want a road in there. So I also talked to Steve Pickens. This isn't just a simple, easy thing to do. I think there's a few other things that we need to look at. Also, my opinion, why are we getting into the real estate business? It's a tax foreclosure. Let someone else go take care of the property. Why do we want to go tear this house down and everything? I'm assuming in order for us to get a road, the road commission would have to approve it because they would be the ones that would be maintaining it. So that's all I have to say for right now, but I suggest that maybe we walk through the neighborhood and see what the neighborhoods say. Maybe they like their private neighborhood, which many of them have said. But that's just my opinion. Well, not my opinion, but what those people said, in my opinion, is personally, why are we getting into the real estate business? We don't need to be going out buying foreclosed homes and rehabbing them, and all I have to say.
Trustee Milky.
Whoops, trying to get rid of my hand there, my blue hand. Bill, I appreciate your comments. I guess I didn't view it and I know Mr. Nanny spoke to this as a potential option as far as a road.
But he
What
never
intrigued
stopped
me
to talk
more,
to any of the people either.
right? What intrigued me more was the pathway, though. I mean, I do see the benefits and the trials that you could have with a road, and I would agree that probably the residents that you described probably wouldn't be thrilled with the road. I mean, it's how I would feel if I was them. But I guess as I had looked at this, I saw it as an opportunity to connect the neighborhoods, at least for pedestrian and potentially bicycle traffic. If you're out, with your stroller, want to walk your kids, it opens up the avenues or opportunities for longer walks or different scenery. And so for that, I was kind of intrigued by this. So it's an interesting idea to say the least. I would agree that normally I don't want to get in the real estate business. So I have a question, and I don't know that management is maybe you're prepared to answer this. Or you're not. You had said $700 would be the anticipated cost through this calendar year for maintenance. And I'm assuming you're talking about upkeep of the lawn primarily.
Yes.
Is that accurate, Mark?
Yes.
And that would be an ongoing for at least some time. But, and that's a fairly minor expense, but do we have a feeling for what it would take to, tear down and, I mean, just ballpark, do we have ballpark and what it would take to tear this down and make it a vacant lot so we can improve it with, say, a walkway?
It's in there.
It's in there, 25.
It is? I missed that.
25 to 35,000.
25,000.
Oh, yeah. How did I miss that? Thank you. Well, that's helpful. Thank you. So I actually thought if I lived there, the walkway was a very amenable, attractive option for me. And I would feel like the township is caring. But I certainly, I do have concerns about some of the comments that Bill heard, and I don't doubt their validity at all as far as the road goes. I wouldn't want to take that path without doing a proper assessment of the neighborhoods.
Trustee Worley.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to compliment Bill for taking the time out and doing his diligence of actually going there and speaking to the neighbors. It's something that on the planning commission, particularly, how you always go to the site and that's being proposed and not only look at the site, but see how it's going to affect the surrounding area. So thank you, Bill. I really appreciate that. I see it as a very creative investment in the community there. I piggyback on some of what Brian said. I didn't like option 3 as far as the road going through. I could see that, knowing if I were one of those neighbors there, I wouldn't want vehicular traffic all of a sudden going on the side of my house or towards my house. But I do see it as a connector pathway for which provides for safety and for connectability within the neighborhood. And I think that might serve a really viable purpose, a really creative investment for a subdivision that right now is more older in terms of its longevity and very modest in terms of what's there. As Rodney said, there's been numerous, I think 7 complaints regarding blight and weed control and that type of thing. So this could be eliminated by having a nice pathway going through there, perhaps make it into a little park, having a bench or two in that area. It could really be a nice connector. And it kind of reminds me of, when I had spoken to, the tribe regarding they wanted to have a connector pathway bridge going from O'Connor over to McDonald in order to connect the subdivisions. I think we should be thinking more along those lines of getting people to be more mobile and getting people to be more connected. And if there's anything that we've learned through this pandemic, it's certainly that connection with others is really, really important. And we've all suffered some of the consequences of what quote social distancing has imposed. So I would support this. I hear the concerns Joe has, but I would support it primarily if it's going to be put forth in terms of the connector pathway for the neighborhoods. That I see as a real viable option, a very creative option. Thank you.
Trustee Howe?
Yeah, some of those people did mention, if you look on page 102, they did mention that it would be good to see a pathway possibly. If you look at page 102, there's the two houses. If you look, just say on the right-hand side of that house, there's another house, kind of like a red car right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's two fences right there. There's an old wooden fence of the house that we're talking about, and then there's a chain link fence to the house with the red car. Well, there's a gap in there of about 3 feet, and a lot of people walk through there right now. So
Right.
that lady, the lady across the street there, that Alexander lady, that Kimberly or Linda Alexander, she said a lot of people walk, it's like on her front porch. She said a lot of people walk between that fence, and they're always like right across the road from her house. There was initially supposed to be a street that connected both of those subdivisions. It's Elizabeth Street. If you look on your, you'd have to go to the next page, page 101. Elizabeth Street, if you look to where it goes to K Street, you'll see that there was a gap in there on property lines. Well, Steve Pickens told me the two property owners on either side of that bought that lot in the middle so there wouldn't be a road to come through to Jonathan. So Elizabeth Street wouldn't have connected into Jonathan, if you guys see what I mean.
Yep.
Okay. He said that the two property owners adjacent to that area bought that lot so the road couldn't go through.
So you found in speaking to some of the folks that a connector, sidewalk, a pathway,
Yeah. A couple
something.
of them said it would be all right. The one lady who got kind of upset and said she'd sell her house if we put a road through, she said that would be nice where they could, she's got 2 or 3 dogs. She said she could walk her dogs,
Mhm.
around a little more.
Yeah, I think that is the most viable option. Is that if we do this, I think that should be what we will be doing it for, rather than necessarily a road. And secondly, it also does protect our utility access we have there too. Well, so.
And at this point, if I may, all we're doing is bringing this forward because we think there's potential for certain things. We have not suggested any one in particular. That whole activity, whether it's a sidewalk or a road or a runway, would have to go through, the full neighborhood,
Public hearing.
input process. We wouldn't just come to the council or the road commission with, hey, let's put a road in there without talking to anybody. But we don't have any opportunities if we don't acquire the property. And if we do acquire it, there are some immediate costs that we'd have to incur, some more significant costs to clear the property and make it safe and have to maintain it. If we got to a point where we couldn't find any public purpose to it, well, then we'd be looking to sell it. And what comes to mind is, selling it to an adjacent property owner, that may have interest in it. But we would not be sitting on this property any longer than we had to.
So at this point, the family that there was no family for Mrs. Aller or Miss Aller at all?
I don't know. This is just on the county's foreclosure list. We have an option to put our name down saying we have an interest in buying it for the amount of the back taxes that's allowed by Property Tax Act. I don't know anything about any of the other particulars.
I was just questioning. I know that the Supreme Court has a ruling on the same type of matter where if the county sells a foreclosed property, that whatever the difference is between what was owed and what it was sold for has to be returned to the families. I don't know on this. It looks like we're just basically paying what is owed, so there really wouldn't be any overage at all. I guess the other thing I would question too is that really if this was to go up into auction, more than likely somebody would probably purchase this, I would think. And we've got the reason why nothing's been done is that you couldn't do anything until after the county had foreclosed on it. So, I guess, do we do something, or do we just simply allow the private sector to make that decision? I would think that would be a somewhat attractive purchase for a low amount of money. And that would solve the whole issue right there. And I guess when we start adding up expenses, we've got purchase of the property, we've got demolition of the house, we've got building of a pathway, and before you know it, we'll have well over $100,000 into this thing. So again, food for thought. Trustee Landon.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. From my estimation, we're looking at about a half a mile by half mile piece of property that is primarily residential, with a parcel right in the center of it that I can understand how township management, with the easements that are there and the idea of protecting the easements there. Not putting anything down on paper, but being aware enough that there's some probably pretty wonderful things that could be done with that parcel to enhance that large residential area. I think that vision's good, especially how we do talk about connectivity and pathways and things. That opens up a significant area for bicycle, walking type traffic. All at the same time as taking control of what potentially is a problematic parcel right in the heart of that property that sounds like it would continue to deteriorate and create other potential problems on a piece of property of that nature. And I believe the investment would create an initial improvement. Thoughts could be given towards how it could enhance the neighborhood. And if it's determined, really we don't have improvements, I do think it could be sold at market value and at least a wash with township money being realized. So I think it's a fairly small investment as a project potential for the township to create a nice improvement in a large geographic residential area.
Here's your rice.
I just had a follow-up for yours, Ben. You had asked about anybody taking that anyone else having access to it about the lot on page 95, it had said Miss Aller passed away without active heirs or an executor for her estate. So it sounds like no one else could take over.
I can add just a little bit to that. In speaking with the county treasurer, he indicated that they had made a great deal of effort to try to engage with heirs. There are some nieces, I believe, out of state that, but never could get anybody to engage at all on this property, and so that's where it was left at this point.
Trustee Houck.
Just once again, why are we getting into the real estate business? That's all I got to say.
All right. Any further discussion on this? All right, let's take this to vote. This is going to be to authorize the appropriation of up to $6,600 for the purchase of Lot 61 in the Country Squire Safe Subdivision Number 2, which is 5243 Jonathan Lane, PID 14-059-00-061-00 in payment of ancillary costs, and to authorize the township manager to notify the Isabel County Treasurer that the township is exercising its option to purchase this lot for public purposes. Clerk Cody?
Trustee Lannan?
Yes.
Trustee Melky?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Supervisor Genning?
No.
Trustee Houck?
No.
Clerk Cody? Yes.
Motion carries, and we move on to our next item. This is going to be to consider calling a special meeting on September 17, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of receiving a report from the Recreational Authority Feasibility Study Committee.
You may recall a doodle poll went out, I think initiated by city manager's administrative assistant. This is to get the report back from the subcommittee that you appointed the supervisor and myself to back in July or the fall of 2019 to look into recreation authority as a means of advancing an aquatic center in the community. And so that's the date that seems to be working for everybody. It would be although it would be the 3 community board, it'd still be a public meeting and still be a meeting of the Board of Trustees. So it's considered a special meeting and you need to call a special meeting.
I'll make a motion to hold a special meeting on September 17, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of receiving a report from the Recreation Authority Feasibility Study Committee.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion Cody, second Milky. Discussion?
Where was the location for this again? Wasn't it going to be next to Maury Courts?
No, this is going to be another one of these Zoom meetings.
No, I mean, where would the pool go?
Oh, we have no idea.
Oh, I thought there was a one time that there was talk that it would go next to Maury Courts.
That'd be basically, Bill, this is preliminary. The
Yeah.
next committee would be the one that would be deciding that sort of thing. All right. So no more discussion. This is going to be to approve calling a special meeting on September 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of receiving a report from the Recreation Authority Feasibility Study Committee. Clerk Cody?
Clerk Cody, yes. Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Hauk?
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Supervisor Gunning?
Yes.
Trustee Milky?
Yes.
Trustee Lannon?
Yes.
All yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next item, item 11, extended public comment. This is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is not an opportunity for answering any questions. It'll be strictly for comments. Do we have anyone in the general public that would like to raise their blue hand? I see Mr. Horton. You are recognized, Mr. Horton. You are blue too.
There we go. Well, I started out with plenty of light, and it's kind of getting dark in my office here at home. So just a real quick, I know I'm not going to keep all of you. You guys are probably obviously getting tired. So just give you a quick update. The budget 2021 budget has been presented to the Finance and Administration Committee, which I'm chair. We had our second draft presentation. We're looking at roughly around a 21 million plus budget for the county for the year 2021. With the COVID and with some other additions, it's going to be an interesting budget this year. We're working through, we're going to be having a work session with the full board on our next board meeting. That'll be our first, work session since COVID started. So that's going to be quite an interesting board meeting. We got some budget amendments coming up for the 2020 budget. Our wage and job classification study, that's going to be put forward as a budget amendment for 2020. So there's going to be some interesting situations coming with the board as far as the 2020 budget and the 2021 budget. Update on the jail. The board is still in negotiation for property. Can't really go into that. I think it's been publicized that we had a closed meeting. We're probably going to have another closed meeting on Tuesday for the further discussion. Also, we've not decided on a source of revenue yet. So whether how everything's going to get paid for. So I can't give you an answer on that yet either. So once I find anything, obviously, I'll definitely inform you. Again, I'm not going to keep very much longer. Just as you see to our north, Bill, I think, Bill Hauk, I think you can see it from your house, the turbines. There are turbines coming in. I believe the county is budgeting, if I recall, please don't quote me accurate, hold my feet to the fire, but I think in our 2021 budget, as far as the northern turbines, we're looking at, I believe, $700,000, the budget. And we're figuring that could be a very conservative estimate. And that's not including the Township ones to the south. That is just, I believe, to the north. But yeah, that is, or it could be including the Co is about 300,000, I think, this year on the 2020 budget. But given that, with some of the expenses that we're incurring, that is that's a good thing that we're having it, but it's being spent as fast as it's coming in. So that is, like I said, 2021 budget and the budget amendments we're seeing at the end of 2020 is quite interesting. So again, stay tuned. I'll have more to report probably your next meeting, coming from everything. And certainly in our September meeting, when we do pass it, I'll come back to your board and, or probably even before, and kind of give you an update and if you have any questions then. So otherwise than that, I could go on for a little bit, but as you guys said, I'm turning blue here. I don't know what's going on. I got 2 lights on and I thought I was perfectly fine. Of course, I couldn't see anything, so I came up this way. So, all right. Anyway, thank you guys for all the hard work that you do. I do like the way the diligence that you folks put in. I admire what you do. It's not an easy job. So good luck and thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, we still have public comment open. Do we have any else in the public that would like to bring something forward? Seeing none, we close public comments. And we move to item 12, manager comments.
Just three. Cleanup day is going to be October 3rd this year at the Commission on Aging. We're planning towards that, so it's good that originally it was scheduled for July, COVID and whatnot. We had to cancel it. I'm sorry, it's October 10th. I had 3rd down in my notes, but it's October 10th. And I also want to ask the board, we have an annual meeting that is normally scheduled in the fall. We had rescheduled that and moved it up to be part of a public input meeting as it related to the zoning code rewrite. And then COVID hit. And so we never had that annual meeting. My question to the board is, do you still want to have it? The annual meetings with the Planning Commission and the EDAs and so forth and so on. And if you do, then we can get about the business of trying to get that scheduled yet this year. If not,
Could we do it at the Commission on Aging?
I'm sorry.
Could we do it at the Commission on Aging building, a bigger room?
We currently have the limit of 10 people indoors.
How does the road commission have meetings?
That's
They have
not,
them in their sign barn.
that's not for me to say.
Well, I guess there's never more than 10 people there, so.
The executive order currently has a 10-person gathering limit indoors. So it would be a Zoom meeting, and I'm just wondering if some of you may reflect on the last couple meetings as to whether or not you think this year it's particularly important to hold it or not.
I think logistically it's going to be difficult to get that many people. It's hard enough to get them into a room, but let alone trying to do a Zoom meeting.
I'm asking because right now there's not one on the books. We don't need to take any action. It was canceled, it was rescheduled, then it was canceled. So we don't need to do anything per the Open Meetings Act or anything like that. We do have the meeting as part of your governance policy. And if you think it's important enough, then we can certainly put out a doodle poll to all the members and hold a meeting. If not, I'm just looking for a little direction is all.
Lisa?
I think we should hold off just to see what the future brings. Maybe if we can, this COVID lifts, that, I think, what is that, another month, that executive, 10 people in a room. See how it goes after that.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, we don't have to decide now. It just occurred to me to ask a question, but we'll keep an eye on it. And then the last thing is just a reminder to the board that next meeting will be my review. And in your packet last month, you had the forms and whatnot. I think what I'll do is under a separate cover, just because they were buried in that packet, I'll send you out the material for those forms in an email tomorrow. Might, as a convenience, help you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the docket, final board member comment. Let's take it from my top right, which would be Trustee Lannon.
Thank you. Only comment I would make is, you know, we passed the cross connection, um, uh, contracting out to the company this year. I just think, I hope the township does a really, really good job notifying the citizens about this, about a company coming into their home, and also be prepared for much resistance to that request. But I know when it was rolled out last time, when residential people were starting to be impacted, communication was less than great and even somewhat inconsistent in areas, and it was kind of a folks weren't prepared for that. So I do think we'll see blowback, so I hope we do the best job we can to prepare our citizens for that important need to keep our water safe. Thanks.
Trustee Milky.
I'll just second what Tim just said, because that was my primary concern as well, was that communication that we see with our residents, because I agree with you. I think there's going to be some pushback, and the information is critical here. So thanks.
Trustee Howe?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Trustee Worley?
Nothing tonight.
Treasurer Rice?
The only thing I wanted to say was regarding my vote for the purchase and of the land. I do hope that, you know, when we look at this property, that we keep in mind everything that the neighbors, you know, everybody that Bill asked and that kind of thing, the information he came across by talking to them about the, you know, maybe doing a pathway and not a road, and just keeping those things in mind. The fact that there were so many that were against it, the road, and that, but were maybe interested in a pathway. So, you know, maybe just keeping that in mind. So that's all I have.
Okay. Clerk Cody?
I just want to thank all the election inspectors, Jennifer, Amy, everybody up front, Chris from CMS for helping with the election. Everybody did a great job. Everything went well. Thank you.
Yep, nice job, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Very well organized. I have nothing. We need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Motion support. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye, aye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.